In this series of videos, we are going to work on the construction of the Secret Garden slipcase. Now this is the slipcase that the Secret Garden Star book slides into, which you can see in photographs on my blog. And there's also a video of the completed Star book that you can view. Now I will post a link to the cutting guide. This is the cutting guide and materials guide that's needed for the slipcase. I'm going to be referring to it during this video so I can make sure that dimensions are correct as we go through. There's also a series of templates that are needed for this project, and those will be included as well on a link that I will post below. This project utilizes a graphic 45, I think it's called an altered matchbook box, and this is the 8x8 size, and I have it in craft board. And for this project we don't want to have this hole in the middle, so the first thing we're going to do is construct something that covers up this hole, and also it's a little redundant maybe to have another piece of chipboard on the back here, but in order to keep all the measurements symmetrical and even, I've decided to add chipboard to the front to cover up this hole, and to also to the back. And then there will also be a piece on the left and on the top. So that's where we're going to get started, and the first thing I'm going to do is just double check the measurements of my box. I would hope that all these boxes are created equal, but I would suggest you do this too. I have several boxes, so this one is measuring 2 inches on the top and 8 3/8 inches wide, and vertically it's 8.5. So that fits with the measurements that I have used in the construction, so we're good to go. So I'm going to just set this box aside for a moment while we make that chipboard covering that will go on top of it. So as I said in the introduction, we need 4 pieces of chipboard to make this kind of shell that goes on the outside of the box. And in the cutting diagram it specifies exactly what these dimensions are. But the case front and back is cut 8 3/8 by 8.5. The case top is cut 2 by 8 3/8. And then eventually the left side will be cut to 8.5 inches tall, but you can see I've got something going on here. So let's talk about this for a second. On the side I want to create a hole, and this is a 1-inch hole. Now I don't have a separate die that will cut chipboard 1-inch hole, so I have a trick to using this one that I do have that cuts 3 holes. Now if you don't have a die that can cut through chipboard, just draw a 1-inch circle and cut around it as best you can, and it won't show, so don't be concerned about it. So we want to create this hole so that it is 2 1/4 inches from the top of our side piece. So what I've done is I've cut this piece a little extra long. I think I cut it about 9 inches long, just so I'd have a little room to play with and didn't have to get really precise on lining up where this die is cutting. So what I've done is I got it as close to possible as to my and a little bit below my 2 1/4 inch mark. I put a piece of blue tape on here to hold it in the center, and then when I run it through my die cutting machine, I'm only going to put a cutting pad up on top of this first hole here, and without a cutting pad these other holes aren't going to cut. And so the result is that I get something that looks like this. And so we said we wanted to have that hole be 2 1/4 inches from the top, so I'm just going to, now that I've got the hole cut there, I can see exactly where it is, and I can come in and cut the top off here And now I can also cut this piece to height, which was 8.5 inches, and I'll just use my board here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. And let me just pause for a moment and say, this project involves a lot of cutting. You'll want to have a nice set of spare blades on hand so that anytime your blade starts getting dull, you'll be able to change it out. So this is my top. Let me put it up here at the top. I have my case front, and I put an arrow on both of these pieces. I don't know if it shows up on camera, to remind myself of the orientation, because they look almost square, but the 8.5 inch direction is the vertical direction. If there's any doubt about which way you have it, if you put your side piece in there, you'll see that it matches up with those two. So we're going to just do some basic box construction here, and what I'm going to do is I have cut some cardstock joining strips that are 3/4 of an inch wide. I've scored them at 3/8 inch, and then I've just put some 1/4 inch score tape on them. And so what I'll do is just we're going to use some butt joining techniques for this, and this construction is going to be covered up by our tree in a few minutes, so it's not necessary to have it be real spectacular looking, but we want to do a good neat job here. So I'm just cutting some strips to length. So that'll do for here. These strips end up going on the inside. There is no right or wrong side to this chipboard, so I'm just putting them down, lining that 1 inch, the one edge, the folded edge, against the edge of the chipboard, then butting up the center, the left side, and putting that joining strip down, and then repeating it for this next strip. And give those a little bit of a burnish. And just pull out my box and just do a quick double check here. That's coming around there nicely. And then we're going to be joining this top piece here on the top. Next we'll add the case top on, so I'm going to just turn this around so it's easier to work on. Remember, the top is the side where the hole is closest to the edge. And just join this with another joining strip. We'll need one for the other side eventually, so I might as well cut that as well. And then I'm going to need one for this short side. And just trim off, just kind of come in and cut these corners at a little bit of a miter. that joined on there, and then we'll just add these on so that we're ready to construct it when we put it up into 3 dimensions. And give those a burnish as well. Okay, so we're at this point. Now, this is going to fit on top of that matchbook. And so, as I said before, I think that we want to finish off some of these edges. And some of them are easier to finish off when it's in a flat position. So I'm going to do the ones that I can, and then we will move on and do the others once we put the box into 3 dimensions. So I've cut some from green cardstock, some strips that are 1 1/4 inches wide that I've scored at 5/8 inch, and I put some 1/2 inch score tape on, and that's what I'm going to use to finish my edges. Now, when I come into the corners, I'm going to miter those corners, and on the outside I'm going to take out what I call little insurance by just putting a little bit of green marker in these corners, so that if I don't make a perfect miter, you won't see it. So let me just take a minute and we'll get that done. Okay. So I'm going to start from the outside, and I'm going to cut a miter on this corner, and what I mean by that is I'm just going to cut this at a 45-degree angle down here at the base. Now you can use your craft mat. As soon as I find, there's the 45. I was like, where is it? But this is kind of going in the wrong direction for me here. But let's see if I put this on here and then get my ruler out. There we go. And I should be at least, I'm going to just lightly score it so it doesn't slip, and then I'll just go cut through a few times, and now I have a nice cut. And so then I have that nice miter that I can stick right there at the corner, and then I can come down here and measure, and I'm just going to measure using my craft knife to see where I need to cut that off. And I'm just putting that little tick mark up here on my cutting mat. And again, go slowly if you're going to use this method of cutting, because the score tape does make the surface slick, so it wants to jump around on you. So now I'm just going to pick this up and get that miter corner just perfect down there before I stick it down. There we go. And then on the inside, what we want to do is what I call train this edge to want to come over before I take the score tape off. And I'm just kind of run my bone folder along that edge, and then kind of gradually start turning it over, and eventually that piece will learn that it wants to come to the inside. The other thing you can do is come along here on the top edge and do that as well. And then once this edge is trained, we can remove the score tape backing. And again, using our bone folder, come along that edge, turn it over a little bit. And once it starts coming over, you can use your fingers to get it down. And then once we do that, come and get that edge nice like that. So I'm going to repeat that on the back side here, and then I'll be back and we can look at the next edge. I'm back. I've completed putting the strips on the back, and now we're going to put them on the two sides. Now, in order to make this easier, I think what we'll do is we will stop a ½ inch from the top, and then we'll use a strip that wraps around the top to complete this here. So what we want to do is to first make a miter so that we can complete this corner down here, and this miter is coming in this direction, so I want to make sure I put it on my, to cut it, I get this cut in the right place here. Sometimes I get a little backwards when I cut these miters, and I just get another opportunity. If you think about it, they have to come point away from the corner. So if this is the folded edge here, it's pointing away from that folded edge, is the way I like to look at it. And then I usually get it right. So then that's going to come right down there to the corner. And then we want to stop a ½ inch from the top. This is 8½ inches long, so yeah, we'll just cut this 8 inches from the point. So I'll put this down on my mat and cut it 8 inches from the point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is right here. Okay. And then because that's going to not go all the way to the corner, I'm going to put my insurance here, just back, covering up that ½ inch area. And then I'll put this strip on like we've done before. I'm back. I finished putting on the two side pieces, and I will say that the tips of the corners are not perfect. So if you are a person that will bother, then find a different method to add these joining strips on the edge. They are, since I took out my insurance, I can barely see that there's a little chipboard showing, so I'm going to just proceed on. So the next thing we want to do is join the box, and when we put this together here, the thing to remember is that these edges do not overlap. You could say that they just kiss, so that you will see both edges when you bring this in there. So if you think about it this way, it's that the inside of the box is staying that dimension. In order to do that, we have to hold that edge up so that we can see it. I got this one off a little bit. There we go. You see how you see the little ridge there? That's what I'm talking about. So then reach in here and burnish. It's a little tricky because you have to do the top from the side here because your hand may not fit in there too well. And then to cover this last little bit here, we want to have a scrap of green that's at least 3 inches, a little more than 3 inches long. I've got one here that's about 3 3/4, so that will work. If you don't have any scraps that are long enough, then just cut another piece of the green finishing strip. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to work our way around, starting here on the front, and then when we get up to the corner we'll make a little release cut, and I'll show you. Then we'll come across the top, make another release cut, and then size it to what we need. Alright, so I'm going to pull some score tape backing off of here. And I've just butt those up there right together. So I've got this kind of action going on right now. And then what I want to do now is to just come in and cut just a slight angle right to where I can see the corner is. And you can see that from the inside. So now we should be able to turn this corner. Oops, I forgot to pay attention because I forgot there's no backing on there. And then we'll come along, use that folded edge to keep it nice and tight there. And then you might want to just put your backing temporarily back on here, just so that when we come around this corner we can measure to see where this cut is and it won't stick prematurely. So again, we're going to look at our corner here and make a little release cut. And now we can fold this over and see where to mark to cut it. Now, I forgot to put my insurance on this side, but oh no, I did it. I just couldn't see it in the light. There we go, in case we don't cut it exactly right. So I'm going to just get my pencil and get this score tape. I've checked it to see it's the right length, so now I can remove that little tab of score tape that I put back on there and bring that right flush there. So now we have the outside edge done. We've got this kind of action going on here on the inside. And so we made, wherever we made our release cut here, on this side we made it on the front. We need to make a corresponding little V, just a little one, up here at the top. Just kind of checking, see if there's any stress on there. See if I can hold this up so you can see what's going on here. So each one has just a little angled cut coming out of it. Hopefully you can see that in that camera. So then we will take the, we can train it. For these little ones, they're pretty easy to just fold in on the back. And then we can train our main one, see if it needs to have any trimming before we put it all the way down. It may be that right in these corners it needs to be trimmed a little bit just so it fits in there neatly. You'll be able to tell when you're actually doing it yourself. So let me remove the backing from the two little tabs. And then let me look and see how this is going to go. I'm going to trim just the tiniest bit from this corner. And get my scissors in here. There we go. Now, these are so small that it's not worth it to try to get in there and train it with the bone folder. So I am just coming around the edge. And now I'll come after it on the edge, just gently at first, and then get that burnished on that side and that side. So what that has done for us is that, bring our matchbook box out here, is this slips right on top of here, and we have a finished edge all around. And this hole here is going to be how we push out the box inside. So now we have all of our tape on and it's fitting in our box. So let's get ready to join the two together. So I'm going to set the box aside for a moment. I don't need the drawer. And I'm going to put down my craft sheet because this is going to involve some gluing. And you can see I've prepped around the opening with some score tape. Now I thought about score tape for the whole thing, but in order to get this in here and slide that in, to be able to control all that stickiness of the score tape, I didn't think I would be able to do that. So my plan is to just have that score tape around here. We'll use wet glue on the front, the top, and the back, and then we will put some weights on it and see how that goes. So let me remove my score tape backing. This is one of those processes that you probably have to cross your fingers and toes, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so start with glue on the flat surface because it won't move around. I'll put some on the back. And then we'll quickly go here to the front side. That was a little bit bigger blob than I wanted down there. Okay, so I'm going to stick this in, trying to keep all the edges away. See what the easiest way to do this, I think, upside down here. Should have said have a wet wipe handy before you start this. Then I can see that I've got a little glue oozing down here, so I'm going to come after that and off of the back here just a little bit. Now the goal is that this case is in there all the way and that the outside is flush with the bottom. I'm just coming behind here. I'm gonna clean up that edge a little bit. Excuse my reach, I need a toothpick. Of course I don't see one. Alright, I'll use my finger now. A little dab of the wet wipe there. Now I can see on the inside, and I don't know if you can, but when I went to put the case in, some glue is sitting in that opening. So that's not a problem. Just kind of cleaning up these edges here. I'm just reaching on the inside and on the to engage that score tape that is around the edges. Because one thing I noticed is that sometimes those edges of the window are a little warped and they can catch on the box when you go to pull it in and out. I'm going to leave that alone because I don't want to tear that paper. There's a little glue oozing and we'll have a little shine, but other than that, it's okay. And it's on there. So I'm just was looking on the inside. I do have a brick over here at the side that I think I'll slide in here, put some wax paper down first, and then so that that opening can stay in as much contact with the front surface as possible. If you don't have a brick like this, you could use a book, but make sure you put wax paper in there. So I'm just going to slide this brick in here and set this aside to dry, and then we'll be back for the next part of the project.